Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Melbourne Business Network webinar with Barbara Cullen, the Director of Small Business Victoria. We're talking about Victorian Government support through Stage 4 restrictions. My name's Anita Botel and I'm your host for today. And we shout out to Wendy Dawson, our President, that's also online today. Now, before we get started, although we are not gathering face-to-face in person, it's important to recognise the traditional custodians of country through Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Now, for those of you that are new to the Melbourne Business Network, we're a membership-based networking association operating since 1994, and we contribute to the economic development of the municipality of Melbourne, and that's normally through face-to-face events and through our B3000 award program. So we have set some time aside today for questions. There's a lot of you on board today, so we will take questions through the chat box. If we don't get to your questions, please don't be concerned because we will connect you to Barbara Cullen after this event. I also encourage you to use the chat box to put your LinkedIn profile in there so you can connect via virtual coffee meetings to other like-minded business people. So as I said today, we're going to get some fantastic information on business support packages to help businesses and workers through to the other side of the coronavirus pandemic from the state government. With a rather large portfolio, and I'm guessing very busy at the moment, I'd like to introduce Barbara Cullen, who has held position of Director of Small Business Victoria with the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions since 2017. So please join me in welcoming Barbara Cullen, who will take us through the available state government support potentially available to you through the Stage 4 restrictions. Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, Anita, and hello everyone. Thank you for turning up this morning. And hello, Sian. Waving to a few people. I recognise a few names on the screen, and it's lovely to see you. I think there's a few I haven't seen for a while, and it's great to see some familiar names up there too. And I really appreciate the opportunity from the Melbourne Business Network to provide you with some information today. So I'll get down to it. Now, unfortunately, my screen sharing capability in Zoom is not very good. And my PowerPoint that had some fantastic screenshots of where you'll find this support information is going to be sent to you separately. So I was going to start with a screenshot, imagine if you will, the Business Victoria website, which is our comprehensive online resource designed to help you start, run and grow your business. And also, if you are an industry group, and I can see that there are a few industry associations and member-based organisations here today, help you provide good information for your businesses and your members. So on this website, you can access information about key business issues and get your questions answered, because we've got some facilities there to respond to questions. You can access information about specific industry sectors, identify government licenses and regulations as well that apply to your business, and step through some interactive guides to get customised information about your situation. And there's also information there about relevant training and advice. It's a website of the Victorian Government managed by my tiny team in Small Business Victoria that's just grown a little bit bigger because we are working around the clock basically to keep the website up to date, because it's connected to the Department of Health and Human Services website as well. So the next slide would have been about the Stage 4 business restrictions, excuse me. And it shows some tiles. So we've got some aqua coloured tiles, I think that's aqua, to highlight the different issues and things like COVID safe plans. There's the high risk COVID safe plan, and some FAQ. So we get lots of questions through our call centre, which I'll talk about later, that's connected to the website. And we've developed a set of frequently asked questions there as well. And then there's some information about the permitted worker scheme. So for instance, it's got in the FAQs, my business is closed under stage 4 restrictions. Can I visit the premises for administration or maintenance purposes? And what happens with our questions that we receive from directly by email, phone call, text message, all sorts of other ways through our ministers' offices? We get questions from businesses and from business groups about specific instances and their particular circumstances. And as we know, there are a myriad of different types of business administration and operating situations. And so we've tried to respond. And what we do is we actually have to seek that advice for the answers from the Chief Health Officer. So the questions and answers that are reflected on the website are the result of our confirmation from the Chief Health Officer, whom you all know, Brett Sutton, who takes a pretty firm line. It's a health issue, and this is all about addressing the health issue. So the response would be to that, can I visit the premises for administration or maintenance purposes, is that if your business is closed under stage 4 restrictions, you can only visit to ensure the facility is closed safely. You can visit to support employees who are working from home in an IT sense, organising IT equipment to be delivered to them. You can visit to address an emergency or something required by law, and for emergency maintenance. There's no specific exemptions for businesses that have existing contractual obligations, and I think this is a really hard point for businesses to take on board and to actually action. Work to fulfil existing contractual obligations is only allowed to proceed if it's for permitted work premises or an ancillary piece of work necessary. So there are some very specific and very definite lines drawn about the stage 4 business restrictions. And you will find we have divided the website information up into industry sectors and into different types of permitted and not permitted work. So what I'm going to tell you about now is the support that we are providing through the Victorian Government, mainly through the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, and the numbers of different types of funds that are available for businesses to apply for, and other support programs that have been announced over the period since the 21st of March, when the announcement was made of the first economic survival package. So one of the first things to be announced was the Business Support Fund, and that went through a couple of different phases. And at the moment, so the original fund has closed. That was the $10,000 grant. That went to about, I think in the end, 77,000 businesses received that $10,000 grant. So you can imagine that's just over $750 million. That got out the door pretty quickly in the end, considering how many grant applications were being dealt with. So the Business Support Fund expansion, Stream 1 commenced on the 30th of March. So if we move down, sorry, I've lost my page. The extension started to the Business Support Fund expansion started in July, and then a further iteration was added in August when we moved from stage 3 to stage 4 restrictions. And so rather than the grant just being available to businesses in metropolitan Melbourne and Mitchell Shire, it was expanded to regional Victoria as well. So at the moment, there is a $10,000 grant for businesses in the Melbourne metropolitan area and Mitchell Shire, and a $5,000 grant to businesses in regional Victoria. The $10,000 one, I think, is largely done in 2 lots of 5,000, because that was the original grant announced in July, and then another 5,000 and businesses didn't have to reapply for that second $5,000. It was being provided automatically through the system. And I think we've done probably about 24,000 grants to date. So that was, a couple of days ago. So the Business Victoria website has the application form. That's the business.vic.gov.au website, and there's a note on the front page of the website, but also if you search for Business Support Fund or Victorian Government Business Support, it will come up. There's comprehensive guidelines and application details of how to apply. You must apply yourself rather than, I think accountants can apply for their clients as well, but we find that a lot of businesses apply themselves. So I think your accountant can help you apply. Okay, next we have some other support that is specifically for the City of Melbourne. There's a CBD Small Hospitality Grant, and some regional tourism support as well that was announced back in July. The $20 million CBD support fund covers postcodes 3000, 3006 and 3008. And there's a $10 million fund for small hospitality grants, which is a stream of the business support fund. And it's targeted at hospitality businesses in Melbourne CBD that serve food with a payroll. Businesses have a payroll of under $3 million, and they've received the Business Support Fund Expansion Grant. And then there's $5,000 grants to businesses with food service seating of 11 to 100 seats, and $15,000 grants for those food service businesses with 101 seats or more. And there's further details found on the Business Victoria website. The picture of the actual page, the application page, will be in the PDF of the presentation that will be sent to you after today. And it shows, it's got some, the name of the fund, little explanation paragraph, the apply now button, but there's also more information, and it expands. There's a lot of information there about guidelines and eligibility criteria. The Hospitality Support Fund is a $30 million fund with $25,000 grants for hospitality businesses with a payroll $3 million to $10 million. There's an additional $5,000 per hospitality business with multiple premises, and it's capped at $20,000. And there's an additional $20,000 for hospitality businesses. Now, that all sounds incredibly confusing, I suspect, and there is detailed information on the website about, and I think it's about understanding the seating capacity as one of the criteria, and also the payroll. So the details, have a look on the website, because each fund is set out quite clearly there. We've also introduced a regional tourism support fund to help businesses in regional Victoria that lost bookings when the stage 4 restrictions kicked in, and even the stage 3 in metropolitan Melbourne and Mitchell Shire, where we were able to move around, and a lot of people who had booked school holidays, for instance, weren't able to go. And so those businesses have been are eligible for support. I think it's up to, there's a limit, I think, of 2 or 3 lots of $250 per booking per business. Some other support that we're providing, and a lot of it is information on the website, is about employing businesses and the COVID safe work plans for stage 4 restrictions, but also some the COVID test isolation payments for employee support. That is a payment of $300 to an individual employee who has undertaken a COVID test, and they have to isolate until they receive their test results. And as we've heard from the Premier and the Chief Health Officer on the daily broadcasts, that workplaces have been a significant source of spread of the virus in Victoria, or in Melbourne in particular. And so to encourage, and because people were reluctant to stay home if they were reliant on the their earnings for attending work, so the government has provided a $300 payment to those two individuals who are being tested, to encourage them, or to require them to stay home. We've had about 14,000 applications, and probably, I think so far about 11,000 of those have been paid. And that information is another tile on the website. The government's also increased that payment to $450, it seems. There's a worker support payment. Now, this service that Victoria started was also a payment to encourage, or for people who had tested positive to the COVID test, to stay at home, and it was a $1,500 payment. And that service is now being transferred to the Commonwealth Government to administer across Australia where it applies. And so that's being administered through Service Australia, and you can still connect to that payment through the Business Victoria website, and that will take you to the Commonwealth website, but we're doing that, the Commonwealth is doing that in partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services here in Victoria. One of the big programs that is, it's a policy really that came out of the Commonwealth, it was designed by industry, is the Commercial Tenancy Relief Fund, and that is a National Cabinet mandatory code of conduct for SME tenants and their landlords, requiring them to negotiate on rent relief for the tenant. There's comprehensive information on the Business Victoria website. It's a scheme to alleviate financial hardship for tenants, and as a result of the coronavirus, as we know, a lot of businesses have had to close, and this covers not just retail but commercial and industrial leases. And so there's some parts to that of this policy and this mandatory code that must be applied to eligible tenants, and the net has been cast very wide to capture as many tenants as possible and leases as possible. There's a moratorium on evictions for the non-payment of rent during the COVID period, non-payment of rent due to lack of income for all small businesses with a commercial lease and a turnover of less than $50 million a year. And the tenant must be a participant in JobKeeper. And JobKeeper, as you would know, requires for businesses at least a 30% downturn in the turnover of the business. The service provides, the policy provides a free mediation service for commercial tenants and landlords if they're having difficulty negotiating their revised rental agreement, lease agreement. The Small Business Commission in Victoria does a great job. It's been around since 2003. And the Small Business Commission is providing free mediation and pre-mediation advice to businesses, so landlords and tenants. There's an application form to lodge a dispute if a business is having trouble, either party, the landlord or the tenant, is having trouble getting the attention or getting the participation of the other party in the negotiation. They can fill out the form on the Small Business Commission website and lodge a dispute, and that will be first an attempt is made through pre-mediation work, which is very capable and highly skilled staff at the Small Business Commission work through the details with the parties and attempt to resolve the issue even before mediation if they're unable to do that. And they have a very high success rate of about 40% of resolving issues before they even need to go to mediation. And if it's not successful at pre-mediation, it goes to mediation, and a barrister, lawyer, mediator mediates the dispute, and the Commission has a 90% success rate on outcomes for successful outcomes for mediations and pre-mediation work there. So very successful. If it's unsuccessful at that point, there's an opportunity to go to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, better known as VCAT, which is another low cost, but costs more than the Small Business Commission. But at the moment, ordinarily, at the moment during COVID, both the Small Business Commission and the VCAT services are provided free. So if people are thinking, I can't take my dispute anywhere, we've got to try and resolve it ourselves, that's not the case during COVID. Those services for the Small Business Commission and VCAT are being provided free of charge. And if there's always the opportunity, if businesses want to take it to the courts. But the whole point of the Small Business Commission and VCAT is to keep small business disputes out of the courts, because it's so expensive and time consuming, means people aren't spending time on their business. Also under the Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme, there's no requirement for tenants and landlords to notify the government of a revised, if they use the scheme, of a revised lease. We don't keep lists of leases in Victoria. So you just, swap the documents, you agree and swap the documents, make sure everybody's got a record of what is agreed and the time period that it covers, and what the rent will be. There are other requirements under the code that mean that there are certain, there's a time. The scheme at the moment lapses on the 29th of September, but government is looking at that in Victoria, as the JobKeeper scheme was recently extended to, I think it's March next year. We've done some surveying and some research in the department, and it's shown that about 35% of eligible businesses have received rent relief, but that actually means that there's about 40%, more than 50% of businesses that aren't negotiating. And we think a lot of that might be due to lack of awareness of the scheme in Victoria or nationally. And we've even seen things on the ABC News, on the news and other channels that about the difficulties that tenants are facing, and there seemed to be a lack of awareness on both sides. There's also one of the slides is about the personal protective equipment supplier directories that and local manufacturing initiatives that have stepped up, where businesses who were manufacturing have pivoted and are now producing PPE, as it's called, for the medical use, or for business use, or for personal use, which is the gowns, sometimes if they're fabric manufacturers are using fabric, or it's the face masks and ventilators even have been manufactured locally. And there's been quite a bit of fantastic stories about businesses, how they've changed what they were manufacturing to supply PPE to the Victorian Government for the needs to distribute through through DHHS and other needs. There's also some interesting directories there. If you click on, there's an opportunity if your business is interested in being listed in these directories. There's an email address that you can contact. So there's a manufacturing opportunity here. It goes from bed manufacturers, bottle manufacturers, face masks and hand sanitizer, material garments, things like that. So there's a number of different directories. I encourage you to, if you're a small manufacturer, to have a look through those, or if your members are, to have a look through those directories and see if your business is able to be part of those directories. I think hand sanitizer, which when I recall back in February, March, was pretty hard to come by if you were trying to buy more, and all of a sudden we've got lots of suppliers. One of the other things that we've been doing is to help businesses deal with, if they deal with the time that they might have on their hands. It's, I know that a lot of us are very, very busy helping other businesses to deal with the impacts and the impacts of the restrictions, if it's not necessarily the impacts of the actual virus itself. And so we've created a website and partnered with a number of higher education service providers and also industry associations to create content for a website called Upskill My Business. And that is a website for business owners and operators to use the time that they have to develop some capabilities that they may have wanted to do for a long time and never had the time or knew where to go. And it's free access, it's free, everything on it is free. To access and attend the short courses and training events and networking events even on the website. We've got about 100 free online short courses and events and resources for business operators, so that when this is all over and we start to move back to a new way of working, as we know, but also getting back some semblance of our business operations, we will have more skills. And this is to help businesses do things like how understand and learn new ways to how to run your business from home effectively, building business resilience. There's some really interesting opportunities there, say from La Trobe University, Melbourne University, through to Restaurant and Catering Australia, Victorian Chamber of Commerce, many service providers there. Things like managing your mental health and wellbeing, managing your cash flow if you've always wanted to learn accounting or bookkeeping, marketing your business and exporting even. And so there are some resources there from Global Victoria as well. And Launch Vic and is another part of the Victorian Government that is taking part in that. Business Victoria's mentoring workshops and even the small business bus is operating digitally, and that's all free at the moment and for the duration of the COVID crisis, and I suspect for a time afterwards as well. We've got probably 77 courses live at the moment. We've had about 23,000 people using the site already. There's 32,000 sort of sessions. So it's proving popular with business owners and operators. I really do encourage people to have a look at that Business Victoria website, because there might be something that catches your eye. Some of the courses run over, several hours over a number of weeks, but I think there's a bit of something there for everybody. And lastly, I just wanted to show you the last page, which is the of the PowerPoint presentation, which is just how to contact the Business Victoria website and team. So we've got the Business Victoria address, the business.vic.gov.au website address. The website has a virtual assistant for COVID information. So you can type questions into the website box, the virtual assistant that pops out. There's also an assistance tool finder, an assistance finder tool, and that can help you find, you can search in there specifically for grants and business support. There's the Business Victoria hotline, which is 13 22 15. That hotline used to be 4 or 5 people in the department. and now it's 420 people who are customer service people, trained customer service people who were downsized. You know, they could be from airlines and other customer service facing businesses who were sort of put aside at the beginning of the crisis, and so we snapped them up to be customer service agents. They're used to dealing with stressed businesses and callers, and through their own usual work, we train them through professional call centre team, and they're working from home, answering calls, and doing a fabulous job and dealing with some pretty tough calls, I think, from businesses. A lot of them we can deal with. We've got a script that we update every day through the Premier's office and through the comms that come out every day and different announcements that come out that affect businesses. So there's some deep information available on the business hotline. There's also an email address associated with the website too, where we get requests for information and clarification on issues. There's also that last page of the PowerPoint, there's the subscription box to the Business Victoria update, which is a fortnightly newsletter that comes out that has the latest information on any announcements of grants and support that is coming available for businesses. That's a really good way of staying in touch. We have links to various support programs. We work across the different portfolios and try and collect as much information from across the whole of Victorian Government and put it into the fortnightly newsletter. So I really recommend that as something to subscribe to. What I haven't talked about here is the many packages of work that are for the Victoria's creative industries. The government has really stepped up through my colleagues in the Creative Victoria team to provide a whole lot of different information and grants for micro businesses, creative individuals, whether it's grants for sustaining creative workers, so it's or whether it's rent relief for Abbotsford Convent and the Collingwood Contemporary Arts precincts. It's all sorts of different services there. And one thing I would just touch on that I'm pretty proud of, that my team has managed to get some funding for, and quite a bit of funding, $26 million over a couple of years, for the wellbeing and mental health support for Victorian businesses. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for my notes here. They just disappeared, and I'll just, oh, that one, sorry. It's a program that we've often tried. We've been very aware for a long time of the stresses and the psychological stress, or psychological stress on small businesses through whether it's drought, bushfire, economic downturn, structural changes in industries. Small businesses, as we know, don't have the resources to deal with or know where to go for support and information. So we've managed to secure some funding, and the first stage of the program is going to be launched today by Minister Pulford, who's our Minister for Small Business in Ballarat, and it's about some partnerships that we are delivering in Small Business Victoria, partnering with some organisations in the mental health space. So we're working really closely with our subject matter experts in the Department of Health and Human Services in the mental health and drugs unit there, to have, in the first stage, accredited mental health training delivered by St John Ambulance to key members of business groups and business networks across Victoria. And this will boost mental health capabilities within local business communities. And then other parts of the program will similarly provide business understanding and small business information into the health providers, into the St John Ambulance and the Beyond Blues and those types of organisations. So we're going to try and balance and share the information on both sides of the support services, whether it's the business advisors or the frontline call centres and health providers, the St John Ambulance, the Beyond Blues, who deal with the stressed businesses, and to give them an understanding of the particular needs of small business owners and operators. So that's sort of a very broad brush picture of what that program will be about. There's an existing program called Partners in Wellbeing, and they have a hotline that's quite, well established, and we will be providing additional funding to that organisation to extend their hours, because I think at the moment they're operating 9 to 5, and we know that small business operators are busy 9 to 5, and so we're helping them to extend their hours to 10 p.m. at night, and also some time on the weekend, so that the business owners and their staff even can access that support. That organisation is called Partners in Wellbeing. It's an existing organisation and service, and they have a fantastic outreach into culturally diverse sectors and cohorts, so that Aboriginal business owners and people with language difficulties, or English as a second language, can also achieve the same sort of support and access the same sort of support. So there'll be different announcements and rollouts of those different parts of the service during probably August, September, as it's kind of put together. I think I might leave it there, Wendy and Anita. Thank you. I've probably gone over time. Didn't see a clock anywhere. So I'm happy to take questions if you like.
Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of information there, and you're right, there's a myriad of places to go to. So what we will do is we'll put all that information on the melbournebusinessnetwork.org.au website for everybody. And as I said, I will communicate to everybody post this webinar today. Barbara, we have, back in line with the question or the comments that you were talking about in terms of the two different releases of funding, there is a little bit of chat in our chat box around it, just for some clarification. So some people haven't applied for the first round. So there's two questions around that. Can they apply for both rounds? Is it only the second round that's available now? If they've applied for the first round, do they just get a top up of $5,000 to make the $10,000 application? Just some clarification around that.
Yep. Some of that I might have to take on notice. This is for the CBD, was it support?
It's just the business support.
Second round. Okay.
Yeah.
Expansion. If you've already applied and if you've already got your first $5,000 grant, you won't need to apply. If you haven't applied, and I'll just look up the website, actually, it's probably the best way to explain this. If you haven't applied at all, I suggest, sorry, here we go.
So I guess the question is really, if you haven't applied, do you just apply for the 10K now?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think you can still apply. Yeah, it's still open for applications. Looking at it, it closes in 33 days. There's a little graph on the website. The program's been extended until the 14th of September. So get your applications in if you haven't applied yet. There's some guidelines. There's some FAQs. There's translation on the website, translated materials. If you call the call centre too, there is translation services available. So I'll just go through some details here. you need to operate a business in Victoria. You need to be a participant in JobKeeper. You need to be an employing business. You need to be registered with WorkSafe on the 30th of June this year. You need to have an annual payroll of less than $3 million in the 1920 year, it says on an ungrouped basis. You need to be registered with the tax office for goods and services, for GST, so you put your BAS in. You have to have an Australian business number, your ABN, and registered with ASIC, I think, or it says federal or state regulator, but I think for businesses that's ASIC. There might be some sort of trades in there that probably have local regulators. It says businesses that have received funding or from other components of the Victorian Government's economic survival package are eligible to apply. Business owners that do not employ people are not eligible for funding. Employing businesses must provide their WorkSafe employer number for verification. That's it. So if you haven't applied, I encourage you to get your applications in.
Barbara, we've got a couple of other inquiries around sole traders. So what sort of support is available for them if they don't qualify for JobKeeper in particular?
Oh, okay. If they don't qualify for JobKeeper, I don't think there are any grants available for people who aren't registered with JobKeeper. I think the probably best way to have a look at that, addressing that, is to look at, they can certainly look at the Business Victoria website and go through the, I think all the funds have you're either an employing business or you're registered or you're registered for JobKeeper. I think for sole traders, you can access the free mentoring and the free workshops and all of the kind of non-fund support. I think there's probably would be available to those business operators. I'll just look on Upskill. Upskill My Business, I think you're probably eligible for the free training. I can't see why not. I'm not quite sure. I haven't applied for any of the courses, so I'm not quite sure what sort of information they're asking from the business operators. I can take that on notice and find out. But I must say that sole traders are certainly a front of mind for us at the moment. You know, I know my team does the statistics on this all the time, and sole traders, non-employing businesses are 64% of all the businesses in Victoria. So it's a significant proportion of businesses. We do know that there's in the JobKeeper application, there's an employing sole trader and a non-employing sole trader definitions, because there's sole traders who operate and they kind of contract in services to from other sole traders often to complete whatever work they're doing. And then there are sole traders who work completely on their own. It is, as I say, very, very much on our mind about what sort of support we can provide. It is very difficult when you look at the numbers of businesses in Victoria to provide a grant for non-employing sole traders, because it would be several $1 billion to do that. And we've done the numbers on that too. So yeah, we are very keenly aware of the circumstances of sole traders.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are suffering just as much, but because they're a sole trader, you know, the normal access to some of the grants, etc., might not be available to them.
Yeah.
But we'll include whatever information that you give us, Barbara, around that. We'll include that on the email going out to everybody. Yep. I have got a question in the chat box. It's relating to hospitality. So we've got a question from Kerry, who's asking if a hospitality business can apply for both the CBD Small Hospitality Grant and the Hospitality Business Grant Program.
I'll have a look. I'll have a look at that one because it's I think it's here. I think I'll use the little finder in here. CBD Hospitality Grant. It's a hospitality grant business based in the CBD. Okay.
Yes, I understand it is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's have a look. CBD Hospitality Grant provides additional support to small and medium hospitality businesses in the CBD that have previously received a grant from the Business Support Fund expansion program. Eligible businesses will be provided with a one-off grant, either $5,000 for the up to 100 seats or $15,000 for seating capacity of 101 seats or more. So I'll look at the FAQ and the other hospitality. I'd say give it a go. If you're a hospitality business, I think there are a couple of things you can apply for. So I think there's the CBD. I think why it was, I think it was divided into areas because the hospitality grant was originally released, and that was for Metropolitan Melbourne and Mitchell Shire. And then when the stage 4 restrictions were announced, the program was extended. So I must admit, I find it a bit confusing. The $25,000 grant. Yep. Eligible businesses with premises in Melbourne CBD, postcodes 3000, 3005, 3006, 3008, also eligible for the $20,000 grant. So, yep.
I don't know how you stay on top of all this, Barbara. I mean, there's so much information.
I know. The one person I'm just amazed that they stay on top of this is my Shane Luder, who manages the Business Victoria website, and he does most of the updates himself with one of his other colleagues. It's a tiny digital team, which shows you when I first started in government 13 years ago, the digital team was about 25 to 50 people. It sort of expanded and contracted depending on what they were doing. It was a huge team, and now I've got a team of 4 that does the same amount of work. It's amazing the sort of changes in technology in that time that have allowed that. So yeah, Shane and Els keep across all this information. You have kind of policy owners that make sure that the information is accurate, and everything we do goes through the Premier's office for approval before it's published. So yeah, it's quite comprehensive, but you know, and we have to remind ourselves it's a health crisis. So everything has that whole background that this is about helping businesses deal with the restrictions as a result of a health crisis. And I think government is keenly aware that this is no business's fault. You know, this happened because of the pandemic, and you know, we're very aware of the situation. You know, it's our families as well. So you know, we're very aware of the impact that these restrictions are having on businesses. So I encourage you to apply for all the grants you can.
Well, you heard it directly from Barbara Cullen's mouth. That's fantastic.
Yes,
I was going to ask you that question, but I don't need to now. Barbara, we've got a couple of other questions for you. One was just some clarity around the manufacturing of the PPE equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
So could you just give us a little bit more information on that?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. There's also there's a website which I will include some information, the Buying for Victoria website. So that is a existing service. It's a website that businesses can register for tenders.vic.gov.au. So you can get emails that tell you about tenders that your business might be eligible to pitch for. So that has some PPE lists as well, where people can register for to supply. So there's on the website, it's if you are a business that needs PPE, or if you're a business that's supplying PPE, there's something for both of you on the Business Victoria website. So if you're looking for PPE, or this was a question about manufacturing, wasn't it? So if you want to have your business listed in the directories, I think that was about that question.
Yeah, I'm assuming that when you were talking about that businesses that are capable of pivoting their business to provide or manufacture PPE, I felt that's where you were going with that one.
Yes, yep. So if your business can manufacture critical supplies that the government needs or that private sector needs, you can register on a central database, and it's with, so the link goes through to the vendor panel website, that they're the local Melbourne success story vendor panel that does a fantastic procurement service, I guess you'd call it, and they're one of the providers to the Victorian Government. You can register your business on that list to be considered as a provider of PPE. If I just take one as an example, so these lists are available if your business needs some PPE, face masks, hand sanitizers, or bottles. I'm not quite sure about the bottle thing. If you need some of these supplies, you can find the supplies through these directories, and it's got these lists. And then if you want to be a supplier, then you fill out, there's a link to fill out there to on the website to be part of the directories as well. I think you probably have to prove, how you're meeting the sort of safety standards and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more about having a directory of suppliers more than anything else. Yeah. But if you're clever enough to pivot your business, fantastic.
Yeah, and some people were amazingly clever and quick to do that. It was really impressive. So, people who were manufacturing clothing locally just sort of went, I can do surgical gowns. So I just need the right fabric.
All those ladies that are working from home. Now we've got two more questions, Barbara. One is around grants related to events or conference, or the conference sector.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, as in terms of there are no conferences happening or they're virtual.
Well, I guess I guess this question is around businesses that are working specifically in that space. Obviously, there's not a lot of that happening at the moment. Melbourne Business Network is one of those organisations, so we've pivoted to a whole lot of online information, which is fantastic, but there are other people out there that are working purely in that conference, face-to-face event type space.
Yeah, and we are critically aware that I think that small events or events and festivals, tourism and business events was pretty much the first sector and group to be really closed down. I recall that back in, was it January or so, January, February, where we were told no more events, and a lot of, I recall those summer festivals got cancelled as well pretty quickly, and they've stayed cancelled. So at the moment, I'm just going through this list here, we've got, I think a lot of it is through the creative sector, and then there's the event sector. So if I go back down to the beginning, my list, we've got, in terms of, here we go. It's music, it's more music sector rather than business facing. Business to business. Nothing specifically, I guess, nothing in terms of grants. It's more about live music. Yeah, just there's been some across a number of different portfolios, some small grants made available to some business networks in terms of, I think probably through metropolitan councils and Mitchell Shire, about small grants to help. It's more about activity in the local area, and some small, I know that the Main Street Australia organisation, which is a kind of a national group that has a strong presence in Victoria, that has membership, I think, of local trader groups. They've been running a small grants program within its membership as well. So there's those sorts of supports for, but they're not necessarily conferences. They're kind of like local trader groups and small associations and things like that. So nothing specifically for conferences, I'd say.
Well, I'm sure the more questions you get on that hotline of yours, the more grants will probably be developed and considered. Barbara, I really want to thank you for your time today. It's been fabulous having you on board and partnering with the Melbourne Business Network to bring us all of this fabulous information. That hotline 132215, that's the number that is going to help everybody if you've got additional questions. What I will do though is I'll email everybody that's a part of this session today and connect them with you so that we can make sure that any outstanding questions are answered. You certainly covered a lot today. We've covered mentoring, we've covered all the different grants, all the different industries. There's certainly a lot of information. I really take my hat off to you trying to stay on top of it all and keep us all informed. But we're here to help you do that, as you know, so our website's going to have a lot of that information on there as well. So everybody, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a big group today and we really appreciate your time joining us. The questions, as I said, that have gone unanswered, please feel free to ask Barbara when I connect you with her this afternoon. Melbourne Business Network, we're here to help you and we're here to support you. Now, a lot of you are doing it tough out there at the moment, but there's also a lot of people that are doing some fantastic things. So while all of this is going on and COVID is happening, we still would love to recognise your business or you as an individual through our B3000 Awards program. We've got applications closing at midnight on the August the 31st, I think it is, which I'll send all the information through to you on the email that I'm talking about as well. So, you know, in light of everything else that's happening, there's light at the end of the tunnel and we would love to celebrate your successes if you're doing something innovative or different or just managing to continue to do business the best way that you can in this environment. So as I said, thank you for joining us. We are a membership organisation. We want you to join our community. You can join us on LinkedIn. You can go through to our website for a whole lot of other information. And what we would like you to do is join us as a member. And I've got a special membership offer for you that I'll also email through to you. Next week, if you're around, please join us. We've got the Deputy Lord Mayor Councillor Aaron Wood joining us, and he'll be talking about COVID-19, the biggest economic challenge Melbourne has ever faced, which I'm sure we're all aware of. So thank you, everybody, on behalf of Barbara Cullen, the Small Business Victoria, and the team at Melbourne Business Network. Stay safe and see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Bye. Bye, everyone.